Hello and welcome to Bluebit, where we don't have intros. Today we're gonna play SPELLBREAK, except we're not gonna step foot on the ground once. This should be interesting. Let's go. And without wasting any time, I hop into my first game. I drop near the swampy area because it looks like it has a lot of buildings for me to stand on. I land on a small ruin at the edge of the map and immediately use what makes this run possible. When we levitate, we float for a bit, but it costs mana. For those of you that don't know, mana is basically what we use to do anything in this game, and it refills over time. With this mechanic, I can basically play a huge game of the floor is lava. I go from ruin to a small fort. While I'm there, I find an amulet. That gives me more mana to work with, so I can levitate longer. I also find a really good flight rune. This allowed me to cross even wider gaps. The main thing with this run is that you can definitely see I'm trying to figure out where to go next, and this indecision is costing me a lot of valuable time. I decide to travel across the swamp, hoping to find more loot along the way. Along the way, I accidentally slip up and land on a very lucky piece of rubble. If it hadn't been there, the run would have been dead. Along the way, I swap out my flight rune for a teleportation rune. This really turns out to be not the best decision. You see, this is the first time I encounter another player in this game. I try to escape by teleporting away, and it works. Sadly though, I teleport onto the ground. Attempt failed. I do, however, learn a very important lesson in this run. You have to keep moving. I have to always have a plan on where to go next, because if I don't, then we're gonna have a lot of runs that end the same way. This time, I decide to go a little west of the center of the map. Nothing really interesting happens until I get this Featherfall rune. This is an insane tool. For example, look at this. I use up all my levitation and then Featherfall. Not only does this make me go further up into the sky, but it also slows my descent. And now because I fall slowly, I can keep levitating, and I can keep levitating, and I can keep levitating over and over again until I touch the ground. With this levitate and Featherfall combo, we can basically float forever. As long as we have somewhere to land, we can basically float anywhere. The most important part of that sentence is somewhere to land. You can see here that I floated myself into quite the pickle. There are no buildings below me to land on, and I am frantically looking around for a solution. And then I see it. A random pile of barrels. Thank you to the random game designer that put those in. I don't know why you did it, but they saved my life. A while later, it's one of the final circles. I hover up and watch the battle from above. I just sorta hover between two towers for a while because, remember, you have to keep moving. As the circle gets smaller, I'm taking more damage, and I'm running out of options on where to go. Before long, I start throwing gas clouds at the other players to try to hurt them. However, attacking cancels the Featherfall effect, so I fall down to earth. The circle is getting smaller now, and all I have is this house to land on safely. There's only one other player left, and I try to hit him with a lightning bolt, but I hit myself with it? Like, how? As the game goes on, I can no longer safely land on the house, and I fall and hit the ground. I end up winning the game, but at the cost of losing the challenge. We were really close, but we still need a better strategy. If we're gonna win, we need to find the best class for our very noble and very important cause. Luckily, one immediately stands out from the rest. The Tempest moveset is made for being in the air. The skill that'll be most useful for us is Updraft. Updraft makes it so that whenever we go into our own tornado, we get lifted upwards. If we combine this with our already crazy overpowered levitation and feather fall strategy, we can float even farther. Let's do this. This time, I aim for a small castle near the middle of the map. I really get lucky finding this featherfall rune so early on, a good omen of what's to come. This is the first time I use the tornado, including our floating combo. As you can see, it lets us go even higher, and it lets us travel even crazier distances than before. I continue to float all around the map, taking any loot that I find. I decide to go near the central fort, but nothing really comes from it. You can tell that I'm intimidated by the fighting in the distance, so I just float right back up and go the other direction. If you're having trouble with this game, I recommend doing this strategy. There's nothing other players can really do about it, unless they're just a really good shot. Is this game plan a little cheesy? Yeah. Is it gonna make this run possible? Also, yeah. The final circle lands right around the Arena of Elders, so it looks like I'm gonna have a lot of structure to stand on. This game has been very lucky. Most of this footage is just me hopping around, biding my time, waiting until I have to get involved. While we're waiting, some tips for those of you that want to try this challenge. It's definitely fun to see how the game changes when you make everything a game of the floor is lava. Sadly though, victory is very dependent on luck. If the final circle doesn't land on buildings, it's gonna be basically impossible for you to win. However, it's still fun to do if you're interested. Anyways, let's get back to the exciting part. Right now, I'm floating above the castle that the storm is closing in on. However, I realized that I was wrong and that the storm is actually leaving the castle. There are still 4 other players, and the storm is getting a little too close for comfort. An icicle barely misses me as I float along. The battle rages below me, and I know that if it comes down to combat, I'll lose, since I only have a common wind gauntlet and an uncommon toxic gauntlet. If I'm gonna win this, the other person is gonna have to die by storm. I fall down for a quick featherfall refill, but then go straight back up into the sky where it's safe. Landing places are getting limited, and I notice that nearby bridge. I hover above the other players, and I'm sure by now they know that I'm gonna always be in the air. I slowly fall back down, eventually landing on the bridge, only to go right back up into the sky where I belong. As I become a gamer and rise up, once again, another player dies. Now there's only 2 other players left. Looking at the battle below, I can tell that one of them has a toxic gauntlet, and one of them has a fire gauntlet, and they both probably have better loot than me. The toxic player somehow manages to hit me, and I take my first real damage of the game. I fall back onto the bridge again, knowing that it's the only place left for me to land. This battle has been going on for so long, I know that now it's just a waiting game until one of the others dies. It's a good thing that they focused on each other, because if they both ganged up on me, then I would be done for. From the sky, I watch them fight each other for a little bit. Bombs go off and boulders fly, but nothing really comes near me. This is the point where I really start to think that I can win this. By now in my other runs, I would have been shot down. And for some reason, this tornado launches me further than normal. I have no idea why this might be, other than God just wants me to win this game. And to further support my divine intervention theory, a player dies almost immediately after. Now it's just a 1v1. And after I hover around for a bit, the other player tries to levitate and fly up to me. But they fly into the storm and die, which just means that I won the game. So yes, with a grain of salt and a big helping of cheese, it is possible to beat Spellbreak without landing on the ground. Anyways, this has been Bluebit, and we don't have outros.